Oak Ridge Town Council January 4th meeting to order. As part of introducing the invocation by former Mayor Spencer Sullivan, please include Linda Yanis, the wife of former council member Danny Yanis, and Police Officer Philip Dale Nix. As we go through our invocation, please keep them in mind. And I'd like to introduce former Mayor Spencer Sullivan, who's going to lead us in the invocation. Please stand as you're able.
Will you pray with me? O God, our creator and sustainer of all things, we give you thanks for this day. We celebrate and welcome the new year with all its blessings, its opportunities, and its challenges. We ask that you guide and direct our town, its leaders, and their actions. We have been blessed with a gifted and talented staff and with boards and committees filled with volunteers who are dedicated servants. Together, they have made our town a remarkable place to live. We pray that we may all feel that same responsibility to our community and to our neighbors. We ask your special blessing on our town council this evening. They've been given a critical leadership role in serving our community because their decisions affect us all. We pray that you will give them guidance and discernment, and may they be blessed with clarity of thought and unity of purpose. We pray that you would help them to set aside their personal interests and agendas and work together for the common good. May your wisdom guide them as they seek to make the best decisions for all our citizens. We ask these things in your most holy name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And thank you for keeping Linda and Philip Dale Nix in your thoughts. They all have served us well. First item is approving the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda with one change. If we could move the Oak Ridge Military Academy's community report to after item number 6.
The motion is made. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried. We would not address the resolution we have for later, so we'll take there. Any resolution, proclamations, or announcements anyone would like to make?
Skip 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I need to get, I need practice, I probably. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the December 7, 2023 meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now, resolution, proclamations, announcements. Anybody have anyone? If not, we'd like to, do we have anyone from the Guilford County Sheriff's Office? Okay, their report is on the back table, so if you'd like to take a look at the crime statistics, that is on the back table. Okay. Report from the Oak Ridge Fire Department. Okay. Is that also on the back, or no, we don't have to? Okay, no problem.
I can read it if you'd like.
No, thank you.
Due to staffing, a member of the full-time staff was unable to be here on the rotation. For the month of, excuse me, we had 104 calls for the month of December. 45 of all other type responses, 13 false alarm calls, 1 brush fire, 3 other hazardous responses, which would be like arcing wires or power lines down, 41 rescue calls, and we had 1 structure fire that was responded on. Training hours were 261 and a half for the month, and And the other thing that Chief Gibson wanted us to point out, that for the calendar year of 2023, the department responded to 1,012 calls. It's the first time in our history we have breached 1,000 calls. So in the 12 months ended, it was 1,012. To give you an indication, when I joined in 1980, we thought it was a terrible year. We had 90 calls in the entire year. So I'll take my hat off. Our paid staff's doing a lot. We're a little bit short-staffed right now. We have been beset by flu A, flu B. We had one gentleman ended up with a touch of pneumonia. So everything is progressing, but like all other places nowadays, a lot of sickness and disease going around. So we asked everybody to please be careful when you're out. Kind of stay away from people that are coughing, hacking, sneezing. The other thing is, for a safety message, we'd ask that everyone please be careful Friday night, Saturday morning. As anyone who has lived here for any time knows, we don't really do snow well, but we do ice even worse. They do have a watch on for us through the emergency services. They expect we could have up to 1/10 of an inch of ice. The primary areas are overpasses and elevated surfaces. So we'll translate that into SAMEs. Be careful when you're going over a bridge. If you're going over things like large culverts, like for instance on East Harold Road, down when you go towards the swamp, there's actually a large culvert that goes from one side of the road to the other. It can turn into an ice sheet in that one dark spot. But in general, look out for around the trees, power lines, and for God's sake, if a power line is down, don't drive over it, don't touch it. They are nothing to play with. But that's our safety message. So let's all be safe this weekend, and hopefully they'll be wrong and we'll just get a little cold, wet rain and no cold, hard ice. Thank you.
How's your tower coming?
Oh, the train tower? Things are progressing right now, just with the weather, waiting on the pour. They've got the grade in, they've got gravel in. The components are actually already been manufactured. They're sitting there waiting for assembly. So we're moving forward. But trust me, as soon as we get that thing up, everybody will know. We're very excited.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next, Dr. Wilson, would you like to give ORMA's status report?
Dr. Steve Wilson, President, Oak Ridge Military Academy, 2317 Oak Ridge Road. I guess that's what we still do, as I remember. Thank you for moving me up on the agenda. I appreciate it. This is my 12th hour working today, so I appreciate you moving me up a little bit. Getting too old for this job, probably. Oak Ridge Military Academy, just wanted to bring you up a little up to date on us. We're doing well, we're thriving. I don't know if you know or not, Oak Ridge Military Academy is the oldest high school boarding academy in the nation. Over the last few years, we've had 13 military academies close nationwide. We not only survived, but we flourished. 6 years ago, when I took over, we had 36 students. We now have over 100. So we're thriving, we're doing well, and we're excited about where we're headed. We've got about 95 students on campus right now. We've had 12 new recruits we just signed in January. We released 4 students last year for various reasons. We turned down 70 applicants to the academy last year. So we're not taking just anybody. We're not a reform school, and it's the worst thing that we have to deal with. I hear parents all the time, if you don't be good, this is where I'm going to send you. So we're trying to get away from that image. We marched in 3 or 4 parades this time. I'll tell you a funny story. One of the drummer had lost his clips, and so the first sergeant got a coat hanger and hung it and hooked it up. So we're working, and so the little clip for all you men that hang your clothes that goes across, well, she had it in her hand, and she was batting as they walked. And we heard one little young man say, "That's what they beat the kids with." We don't do that, okay? We don't do that. We're having, so far, we had one person was trying to apply to Oak Ridge, and they were looking for a West Point assignment, and the West Point admissions director said, "Call Oak Ridge." So When that happens, you've arrived. This year, we have already had, it's early now, it's early. We've already had 5 of our seniors have scholarship offers. We've already had. We're going to graduate 18. We have 1 student that's under the application for Naval Academy, and we're working with him with congressmen and senators and letters and whatever we have to do. A great young man, so we're excited about that. I think Mike told you last week, we have an agreement that we signed with Virginia Military Academy, came down, VMI, Virginia Military Institute, I should say. They came down and signed an agreement, whereas if you graduate from Oak Ridge Military Academy and with a maintained certain average, you're automatically accepted to VMI. We've already got that agreement in place with the Citadel, with Norwich Academy, and also Georgia Military College. Georgia Military College, I don't know if you're familiar with, the only thing I knew about Georgia Military College is they produce a lot of generals, and they do. They give a scholarship to a young man out of Oak Ridge if he's maintained certain average, a 4-year scholarship. Now, Georgia Military College is only a 2-year school. They can take that other 2 years and go wherever they want. Great situation, so we're excited about the connections that we've made. Our athletic program is flourishing. Our basketball team is 19-3. They're ranked like 45 in the state. If you know that, they're really doing well. But we've got about 5 players that are probably Division I or Division II players that are being recruited. We've already got 3 kids that have already got scholarship offers already. This is way early. You will think about anybody that follows basketballs, understands this portal that all the kids are going from college to college, and that's got to go past before the high school kids starts really getting recruited, and that's around March. So this is real early for those offers to come out. But the real thing that will happen in basketball is we have 3 young men from the Ivory Coast. They came from the poorest of conditions, and they are such good people. And such good students. They go to class. Nothing changes for them. They go to formations. They go to class. They do everything that cadets do, and then they practice basketball. Some of them get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go practice. So we're really excited about where they're headed, where they're going. 2 of them are headed to college, no question about it. So we feel like we've done something good for them. We went to the alumni. We went to several places and got scholarship money for them so they could come. So we didn't take this on the cuff, and we had people to help us do that, and that's what we do. While I'm up here, I want to give a special thanks to the Oak Ridge Youth Association, who has really been working well with us and close to us, and we've just had a great relationship with them, and we do appreciate everything. Also with the Oak Ridge Merchants Association. They have been awful good to us, too, and helped and been supportive. Recently, we have engaged with the DAR, the Daughters of the American Revolution. They have been doing great work for us already and great things in the future with us for them. They are helping with a project. The last thing I close with here, I guess Sandy's not here. She didn't ring me out at 3 minutes. But anyway, you do? Okay. The DAR is helping with Maple Glade. Maple Glade is a historical building that we're trying to restore. I want you to, I implore you to please consider the money that's being spent on this Redden House over here. I understand it's like $650,000, and Maple Glade needs about $350,000 worth of work, and it's back to where it ought to be. It's a historical building built in the 1900s. It's good for social events. We're going to have wedding venues there. We're going to have a lot of things there. We're working hard on it. The DAR has already raised almost $10,000 for us. So they're working, and everybody's working hard to do that. But I ask you to think about that and consider where that money is going. It would be much more useful in this historical building at the Academy. Thank you for your time. Thanks for upping me on the schedule. Like I said, I'm getting too old for 12-hour days. Any questions I can answer?
Well, thank you so much for coming out. We hope you can come out more often.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson.
Appreciate it. Okay, next item we're going to move on to is a public hearing. Before we get started, anyone on council have any conflicts of interest or anything like that they want to make public?
No, sir.
Okay. Is Sean going to introduce or you, Bill? Sean? Sean, would you introduce the public hearing?
Before you tonight, you were having a public hearing on rezoning case RZ 23-02. The Planning and Zoning Board heard this case on December 14th. The applicant is Zunaira Investment LLC, and then we're going to have, instead of Murad Ali as the owner of Zunaira Investment LLC, we'll probably have Bill Greco as the representative tonight. The request is to rezone property from AG Agricultural to CZ LB Conditional Zoning Limited Business. The applicant proposes to use the existing business structure for continued use as a convenience store. The use conditions with this are there will be only one allowed use, which would be the convenience store with gasoline pumps, which is an allowed use within the limited business zones. Also, there's additional development conditions. One, as the development of the site shall follow the Commercial Village Core Design Guidebook for the town of Oak Ridge. And the hours of operation shall be limited to the hours between 5 a.m. and let me correct this, in your report, it's supposed to be 11 p.m. instead of a.m. And this one condition came out of, at the Planning and Zoning Board meeting, there were some residents addressed some concerns about the hours originally being till 12 a.m. And so the applicant representative made the adjustment to compromise and say we'll stay to 11 p.m. Planting yard rates shall be doubled in the required street planting yard along Haw River Road. And number 4, any future expansion of the existing building shall be limited to 25% of the current building footprint. And also signage shall be prohibited on any island canopy. This property is located on the north side of Haw River Road at the intersection of Haw River Road and Parkchester Place. It is Guilford County Tax Parcel 166414. The public was all property owners within 500 feet of the subject property were notified, and the property was posted as well. With community outreach, the applicant also mailed additional notice to the property owners and also met in an informal meeting with property owners, adjacent property owners as well. The tract size is 1.37 acres. Topography is mostly flat. And with vegetation, it's mostly open with a lot of dispersed large canopy trees. Currently, the property has a single-family residence and a legally non-conforming convenience store with gas pumps. This convenience store has been located there for probably over 80 years or more. So that's why, and it was probably, when it was constructed, was conforming, but when zoning was created with the county and then with the creation of the town, it became a legally non-conforming use. Our zoning district standards, as many know, the agricultural district is primarily intended to connotate uses of an agricultural nature. And then with the limited business zone, is primarily intended to accommodate moderate intensity shopping and services close to residential areas. And then also with the overlay districts, there are none. Environmental, this is in our least watershed, which is the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. There are no floodplains or no streams. It will be served by septic and well. Landscape requirements it will have to follow within our ordinances. Off-street parking regulations will apply during the site plan review process. And also tree protection requirements are also applied to this. Haw River Road is considered a major thoroughfare. And with site accesses, all access must be designed and constructed to NCDOT standards and the standards set forth in Article 8, Division 9, Section 30-860 of the Town of Oak Ridge Code of Ordinance. Traffic counts were done along Hall River Road in 2022, which has an average daily traffic average of 4,297. The creation of sidewalks will be part of the site plan review. The pedestrian plan does show a path through there along Hall River Road. A traffic impact analysis is not required. However, NNC DOT may require one. Future land use compatibility. It does come in line with goal number 3. Oak Ridge will continue to encourage distinctive, high-quality site design and construction that reflects the town's historic heritage and contributes to the village feel of the town core. Commercial development outside of the historic district should incorporate design elements of the historic district. And policy 3.3.3, existing commercial uses outside the commercial town core should be encouraged to improve appearance and function. Modifications or changes in zoning in these areas may be appropriate depending on context. As I said earlier, the pedestrian plan provides for a paved shoulder in this area along Hall River Road. And with staff recommendations, I do recommend approval of this. And then at our Planning and Zoning Board recommendation, they made a motion to recommend approval to the town council of the application for rezoning. They felt the proposal was consistent with the adopted land use plan and was also reasonable and in the public interest. The motion passed 6-0 to approve the recommendation to town council for this.
Is there anyone from Planning and Zoning that wants to add anything to the report?
Jason Strack keeps talking to Steve.
Well, I asked if he wanted to. Okay. If not, we're going to hold a public hearing. The public hearing is broken up into 2 parts, people that want to speak in favor and people who want to speak opposition. Each party will be given 20 minutes to speak in favor and 20 minutes to speak in opposition, and then there'll be a 5-minute period for any rebuttals after that. Anyone wish to speak in favor? And Ashley, you'll keep time? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bill Greco with Land Solutions. My address is P.O. Box 347 in Oak Ridge. Here this evening to speak in favor of this application on behalf of our client, the property owners. First of all, I'd like to thank staff for their assistance with the application and certainly, the entire town for allowing us to use this facility to host our own open house with this project. A lot of work goes into these applications and getting everything put together and lands us here tonight. With that said, this application is not your everyday application. This is an existing non-conforming use. And if you look at, big picture and working down, the limited business district by definition is established to provide services for nearby neighborhoods. So that certainly was a great choice for this spot. And we did limit the use, as noted, to nothing more than the convenience store with pumps that are currently there. As you get into the details of the additional development conditions, the first one was born from a suggestion from staff that I take a look at this commercial village core design guidebook that Oak Ridge has somewhat recently brought online. And we looked at that, and while we certainly can't meet every single piece of that as it speaks to village design and some of those things, there are just numerous things in that guidebook that can be applied to this site in terms of lighting and architecture and materials and placement and those things. So we thought that was a great condition to include. Hours of operation, as mentioned, we did adjust those at the planning board, modified the application in response to some concerns from neighbors. Planting yard rates on Hall River Road, we would like to double those up just to get a little more. The site will open up a little bit, so we'd like to add a little more landscaping in there to insulate it somewhat. future expansion of the existing building, we limited that to 25% of the existing footprint. This structure itself, the store, the building, it could really use some modernized, let's say, restroom facilities, walk-in coolers. We don't need 10,000 square feet more floor space, but we certainly would like to get that aspect of things looked at. And then signage on the canopies will just be prohibited. So as you're coming up and down Hall River Road, we certainly don't want you to see Exxon, Shell, Citgo. We'll just not put a sign on that. That's not what we're about there at that site. We did hold our own open house, had about a dozen attendees, had a lot of questions, and I would just think 90% of them or so are all related to future things. It's the details that you're going to see with the site plan should this be approved. A lot of valid questions, concerns, what kind of materials, what's it going to look like, so on and so forth, but not necessarily zoning-related concerns. What we believe this is all about is fairly straightforward. Our owners do, briefly, they had previous engagement this evening. Briefly, they're local family, Summerfield. This is what they do, one of their businesses. A number of independent convenience stores, if you will, have been in place and been operated for years and years and years, and for whatever reason, the current crop of youngsters just doesn't have interest. They've gone off to college or done something else. So, part of what our guys do is they purchase these things and modernize them, bring the investment in. We certainly want this to be, a shining beacon, a good example of what solid planning and rules and regulations and all that can come together and put on a site. As mentioned, it's the age of the last minute mark changes with every person I talk to. It's gone from 50 to 60 to 70 to 80 to, my current belief is it's about 100 years old, give or take. It certainly is a viable business. It can sit right there and operate just like it is. If you've ever seen the siding, it's blue metal, so that's some of the stuff we want to change. On the site itself, I'll step a little bit into site planning. The entirety of the property is 230 feet wide. When we apply the landscape buffers that are required to each side, that's going to take away 100 feet. So we're down to a 138-foot wide site to work with. With the small expansion and renovation of the building, I envision the pumps and the island being over to the left if you're standing in the road looking at the site. Hundreds and hundreds of new trees, bushes, shrubs, et cetera, will be planted. We've had some pretty good discussions and comments, again, from our neighbors with regard to landscaping and buffering and that. And certainly at site plan stage, landscape plan stage, we intend to use evergreens and some other techniques to our advantage to address things like headlight sweep when you would pull in and out. Certainly a 50-foot wide buffer is a huge buffer. That's not one you see every day. That's a use out of the chart, straightforward item. And with all that said, we do feel like it conforms with the plans. Staff has recommended approval. We feel like we've done our absolute best to meet with all our neighbors and address their concerns where we can. Planning Board's recommended approval, and we certainly hope you folks will recommend approval tonight as well. Questions, comments, concerns, I'll be happy to address those as needed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak in favor? If there's no one that wishes to speak in favor, is there anyone that wishes to speak in opposition?
I'm Tim Shields, 8450 Hall River Road. I also own the house behind the store, 8454 Hall River Road. I'm not here for or against, but I'd like to make a couple of comments. We talk about this existing use. The existing use is really about 5,000 square feet, about 2/10 of an acre, maybe less, 2/10 of an acre. And then you got a house, and you got outbuildings and what have you. And the house I have behind the store is literally about 45, 50 feet behind the property line, the northernmost property line of this property. So their backyard is my front yard, is what I'm trying to tell you. And there are a few canopy trees on this property in the back, but the limbs are high, and you can see right straight underneath it. And it's my understanding we're going to get a canopy, which we don't have now. It's not something we want. Possibly going to get above-ground fuel tanks, which I don't know if you've seen above-ground fuel tanks or not, but they're pretty big. And usually you're going to get one for unleaded, and you're going to get one for leaded, and if they have diesel, they're going to have diesel. And I noticed they did not mention, they only have one use. They mentioned the store, convenience store, but they didn't limit the pumps. And I think that should be addressed. I don't think we should just let this go out there and be a 4 or 6 pump store out here in the middle, right in between 150 and 68. There's no commercial through there. I've heard that they didn't want to use more than two pumps, 2 island pumps. I don't care if they have a diesel or something else off to the side, but from an island pump standpoint, I don't see why we need to let them go out there and put 4 or 6 pumps in. And as far as the buffer goes, so I would like for that to be addressed. If we could talk about the pump situation and their conditions, the number of pumps. Don't really have a problem with the canopy. Don't like it, but if you're going to have a convenience store, you really need you do need a canopy. I've been told it's not going to be a 15-foot canopy. That would be more like a 10-foot canopy, which would please me. But the tanks are probably going to be located in the northwestern corner of the property. If they put above-ground tanks on the property, that's back up against me. And I noticed that the petitioner volunteered to double the landscaping requirements on the street yard side of the property, up against the road. Well, the closest house to the front of the store is probably 300 feet away. I'm 50 feet away, and I'm on the back side. So what I'm requesting, I'm the one who brought it to the attention of Bill and Sean that I'd like to see more evergreens put in this there's a type 4 buffer that I've been told by Sean that's going to be required. And in that type 4 buffer, I read it a month or so ago before the planning board meeting. Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's 2 or 3 canopy trees per 100 linear feet, 10 understory trees, and then bushes, 20, 30 bushes per 100 feet. Not so concerned about the bushes, but the understory trees sound thin to me for a type 4 buffer. That's supposed to be your heaviest, densest screen buffer that you could put up around a piece of property. 10 understory trees, if you put up Japanese maples or some small understory tree, that's not going to block off above ground tanks and a canopy in my front yard. The lights, the way they're going to have to put those pumps, the lights when they come off of Hall River Road are going to just about shine into my front window. And Bill said he would work with the evergreens to try to help that, but I'm trying to help it more. I would like the petitioner to add 50% more understory trees to the type 4 buffer on the northern property line. That would go from 10 to 15 understory trees. I think that would do the job. So I'm requesting Bill to consider that. I also want to bring to your attention, there's a little clause in your landscaping ordinance about a reduction in landscaping for small sites of 55,000 square feet or less. And it just so happens that 1.27 acres is just a little bit over 55,000 square feet. And when I'm talking about a reduction, I'm talking about a serious reduction. And it was said at the planning board meeting that Bill would not pursue that 55,000 square foot reduction for landscaping. And I would like that to be in the book, on the record, that he will not, because what that would do would reduce the landscaping buffer from about 40 feet to about 16 feet. And I really would like to see it stick out there at the 40 feet. So if we could get Bill to address that, I would appreciate it. Other than that, oh, the time of the store, 11 o'clock wasn't satisfactory to any of the neighbors. 10 o'clock, I mean, you know, when you put out there that you're going to keep your store open till 12 o'clock, you know you're just throwing out a number, because that store closes at 6 o'clock in the winter, or has always in the past closed at dark in the winter and stayed open to 7, sometimes 8 o'clock, depending on who was running the store in the summer. This is not a store that stays open past 9 o'clock. I mean, 8 o'clock is the latest I've ever remember that store staying open. And there was a discussion about hours of operation. I'm not sure how Bill's got it written. I think it's hours of operation in his condition. Well, there was a discussion about what the heck does that mean? Is that business hours? Are you open to 11 o'clock? Or are you shutting down at 9 and you're going to stock the shelves between 9 and 11 o'clock? We think there needs to be clarification on change that condition to business hours and change it to 8 or 9 o'clock. My God, I don't know if y'all live out there or not, but it's a pretty quiet little neighborhood. And we really don't want to be drawing a bunch of people in there after 10 o'clock. So those are my issues. If y'all could talk to Bill, see what you could do, I would appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition? If no one else wishes to speak in opposition, we'll open a 5-minute period for rebuttals. Those people in favor, if you wish to do any rebuttals, you have 5 minutes.
Bill Greco with Land Solutions. Again, a lot of the concerns expressed are at site plan level. We've vetted the idea of a lot of record and a reduction in landscape. It just doesn't apply to the site. I don't know. I think, at the risk of overestimating my abilities, I think I have a pretty good understanding of the Oak Ridge ordinance. But even if it does apply, we haven't asked for it. We're not going to. I would remind council that this is a conditional application, and the applicant is entitled to offer, amend, adjust conditions if the council's agreeable to hearing such a thing. So I would add a condition this evening that understory tree planting rates shall be doubled along the northern property line. Emphasis on understory, not all of it. So if council's agreeable to that additional condition being added tonight, I have nothing further on this site. Certainly, again, here for any questions that you may have.
Bill, do we have to do anything fancy to accept his additional condition? Or just include it in?
According to the statute, only the owner of the property can offer conditions. Mr. Greco is a representative of the owner, but only the actual owner of the property could offer the condition. So that it would be not enforceable unless we have the owner of the property making that offer tonight. Take Mr. Greco at his word during the site plan process. He could certainly double the understory, but I don't believe at this juncture we could add that as a condition without the owner physically being present to agree to that.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, sir. That's
Okay.
fair.
Since the applicants, people in favor have taken advantage of the 5-minute period, anyone that speaks in opposition can take advantage of those 5 minutes also.
I worked with council for 20 years before I took early retirement for the town of Kernersville. And a petitioner never brings his owner on a conditional use zoning case if he thinks that the conditions might need to be changed. The owner is AWOL, and we got somebody wanting to run a store till 11 o'clock at night. I appreciate the trees. I asked for 50% more. He doubled that. I appreciate that. That's a nice gesture. But let's talk about the operating time. I just don't see how you can approve a store running to 11 o'clock at night without the owner here. Jill couldn't be here. She lives next door. She called me before the meeting, said she couldn't get here. Jerome lives behind my house. He's all tore up. He couldn't be here. Everybody's upset about the 11 o'clock operating hours. I'm the only one here to represent the 3 or 4 of us that live around the store. I really feel like the owners of the property need to come and tell us, number one, what does the term hours of operation mean, and how does that relate to business hours? We were told at the planning board that the hours of operation, well, somebody might be stocking shelves. Oh, the area closes down pretty early at night, so they might not stay open that late. Where's the owners to tell the people, yeah, we'll shut the store down at, say, 9 o'clock, and we don't care if they stock shelves till 11 o'clock, but we don't want business hours to be going on to 11 o'clock. I think Jill made that clear at the planning board meeting. Jill Pearman came up here and spoke 3 different times about this time thing. So if you're saying the representative can't make that decision, and if I was him, I wouldn't want to make it a decision for the owner either about time of operation. I would request that you postpone this until the owners can come and we can get a clarification between what hours of operation mean as proposed in his condition versus what business hours mean, open business hours mean, and get the condition to refer to open business hours and not hours of operation. They're clearly from the planning board, from what we heard at the planning board, there was a lot of dancing around this. And it was 12 o'clock is what they put in there to start with, and it just blew our mind. The little country store gonna stay open to 12 o'clock? And then Bill come up and said, oh, we'll drop it back to 11 o'clock. Well, the owners didn't make that concession. Bill made that concession. So what I'm saying is this thing needs to be postponed till you get the owners here and we can get this hours of operation. I don't even want to call it hours of operation, business hours. Get the business hours settled to a reasonable time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any time left? If anyone else would like to take advantage of the period of opposition rebuttal? If not, we're going to close the public hearing. Typically, we allow some question and answer before we make a motion. Anyone like to ask some questions of staff or the applicants?
I have a question. I'm just curious. You mentioned that they're trying to bring in investment. Does that mean the owners on this application aren't the ones who are going to be operating it? I'm just curious.
Owners of the property have placed this in an LLC, which is something investments. They intend to operate, staff, manage. They're very hands-on.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Anyone else have some questions they'd like to ask before I ask for a motion?
Sure. Bill, explain to me, it was mentioned about above-ground fuel tanks. That's, excuse me. Can you illustrate or give us a little bit of flavor about that?
Certainly, above-ground fuel tanks, plural, would not be applicable to this site. There are above-ground fuel tanks. There's one right over at the village store in that buffer between the village store and, I call it the village, whatever it's called now, Shell Station. Above ground has, as it's been explained to me, a number of advantages over underground. And to take this one step further, the underground tanks that are currently there that are existing, we've had some preliminary discussions with the branch of DEQ that operates that. The intent there is to abandon them, whatever that takes. It's Pandora's box until you start digging. You don't know what you're going to get, but there's no, well, this looks hard, let's just leave them. Once you get started, that's there. But no, the above ground, certainly there'd be buffereds, bollards, any number of items in that design guidebook to help us screen that and be effective with those.
And the other question I had is I know I read it somewhere, or maybe I had a discussion. How many fuel pumps are there today, and what's the maximum number that we're looking at?
Currently, there are 2 fuel dispensers
I'm
on the
sorry, yeah.
property, and going forward, we believe we would be limited to 2 fuel dispensers. Unlike Buc-ee's that has 100, we're never going to need that many, but we certainly believe that 2 is adequate, and 2 allows me to get my stacking how I want it and everything else to create a safe environment for those that are fueling.
Any other questions? If not, I'd like to ask for a motion either to approve or deny the application for zoning. And there's a long page that whoever makes the motion will have to read, so.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that the proposed zoning amendment be approved based on the following. The proposed zoning amendment is consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan of the town of Oak Ridge. The planning board has provided the council with its written statement that the zoning amendment is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and the council concurs and adopts the planning board's finding of consistency by reference. And the proposed zoning amendment is reasonable based on the report of town staff finding the proposed zoning amendment to be reasonable, which is adopted by reference. And the proposed zoning amendment is in the public interest based on the report of the town staff finding the proposed zoning amendment to be in the public interest, which is adopted by reference.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion. The person making the motion is given the privilege of speaking first. Would you like to make any comments?
I am pleased that so many accommodations have been made and that this long-standing institution will continue. I share your concern. I understand your concern about the operating hours. However, I think if we just continue to share those with the owner who's going to be hands-on, I think I'm confident that can be resolved. And I think the screening makes the wide buffers and the number of trees sounds like it's going to do a huge job and go a long ways toward screening all activities from neighbors, although I do understand you're close and I appreciate your comments.
Mr. Greason, do you have any comments, suggestions, questions? Mr. Stone?
Yeah, I agree with Ann on this. I would assume, I'm not, a smart man or anything, but I would assume when it says hours of operation, that infers to me the time that the business will be open till it's closed. Given an example, if my hours of operation are from 8 to 5, when the doors are open for customers to come in, what I do before 8 o'clock, stocking shelves or getting the business ready to run, is not hours of operation. I'm paying somebody, but it's not hours of operation. 5 o'clock, we close down, mop floors, clean up, do all those types of things to get the store ready for the next day. So I understand the concern, but I think that the hours of operation are rather clear and clearly stated in the proposal. So I don't know that I have an issue with that. The one question I did have for Sean is that you said that the owners will have to sign off on the change in the typo for the 11 p.m. Hours, correct?
Yes, with any of these changes, the owners, as Bill said, the owners have to approve it before it's
And they'll have to sign off anyway because of the additional condition that was offered up tonight, correct? I mean, they're going to be involved in this at that point, right?
Right, but I wouldn't make an assumption about the additional condition that was offered. The change in the hours that was made 30 days ago or however long ago the P and Z board meeting was. But the one tonight, I don't think there's been an opportunity to understand whether the owner agrees with that or not.
Well, I guess my question is would that be the point that we would consult with the owners, or is there another process about the additional condition that was offered up?
When it comes to conditions with like the landscaping, one of the things when I was working with the applicant was to adopt our new village core design standards, which are going to be really stringent and give our planning and zoning board a lot more power to be very restrictive and to look at more things for a site plan to come into compliance. So there's going to be a very strict review during that period for them to look at all the concerns with this. And they haven't had that tool before, and this is our first one where we've been this restrictive for this.
Thank you.
Anything else? Oh, Mr. Harden?
I did attend the Planning and Zoning Board meeting and watched the concerns being raised and also concessions being made, and saw further willingness to make concessions tonight. So I feel comfortable that we can move forward.
Anything else? Okay. I've always liked the idea of having small little pockets of commercial, retail spread out throughout the town. It makes it so that, a local neighborhood can go down and grab a carton of milk or some eggs. The gas station makes it easy for people up there. One benefit of having distributed retail is it means there's a little bit less traffic coming to downtown for simple little errands like that. So I think this is a good thing to have this kind of development spread out. And let's see, I think that's about it. I got as far as I appreciate all the accommodations we've made. I think to some degree the hours might self-regulate. If they're not busy at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, they're just market forces are going to cause them to close at 9 o'clock. So if the retail traffic is slow, just the economics of things will cause them to slow down. So if it's true that the neighborhood is quiet around 9, 10 o'clock at night, they're going to close. So I think that'll self-regulate to some degree. So any other comments, questions before I call for a vote? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Congratulations. Thank you. All right, next is our first public comment session. You're welcome to come up, speak on any topic. All we ask you to do is limit your comments to 3 minutes and state your name and address, and the floor is yours. Anyone likes to speak?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Bill Goebel. I live at 1402 West Ridge Road, Greensboro, North Carolina. And I thought I'd give you a behind-the-curtains look at the Guilford County school systems. As you know, I served for 5 months as your representative. And I looked at that when I came in as a business. If you have a business, as many of you have worked, what kind of assets do you have? How are they maintained? What age are they? What reserves do you have? What your people do? And so I started looking at it from that standpoint. So I came up with, for myself, 19 interesting facts. And when I did that, it kind of gave me a picture of what our school system is. And my overall viewpoint after looking at these facts was, for decades, we've underfunded our schools, and by a significant amount through the state. So I started looking at what other states are paying in investing in their schools. And we're ranked number 47 in the country. Now, it's been coming up. And so I started asking some of our state legislatures, why has that been? And part of it is they were trying to bring business in here, and like Toyota and Boom and other people. So they wanted to invest incentives to bring people in, which is a great idea. I support that. It's now time to dial some of that back and give some more to the schools, because one of the problems you have, you bring in these businesses and you don't have qualified workers. So if you don't have qualified workers, you can't run your company. So here's some interesting facts, and I'll run through them quick because I only got 3 minutes, and I may come back and give you the rest of them. But we're a $1 billion business. We've got a $2 billion bond, the largest in the history of North Carolina. COVID reduced our test scores in all schools to 2013 level. Pretty significant amount. So what Whitney Oakney and her team has done, much to their credit, they've started learning hubs and high dosage tutoring, and they're bringing those back slowly, but it's going to take time. It's going to take time. We're the third largest school system in North Carolina. We're in the top 50 in the U.S., and we are the poorest of the largest schools in North Carolina. We have 68,000 students, 9,500 employees. Student ratio is anywhere from 15 to 21 per class. And I'll give you some context. Church youth group is about 10 to 1. A private school is about 10 to 1. Boy Scouts are 2 to 1. To give you an idea, I'm a scouter, so I'm going to brag on them. We have 2 kids for every trained volunteer. Makes a huge deal on kids. We have 126 schools, 300 buildings, 12 million square feet of roofing. About that maintenance, our maintenance department, we have 2 roofers for 12 million square feet. Most of our roofs are flat, and if any of you own flat roofs, you know they leak pretty good. We pay our maintenance people $15 an hour. If you're an electrician, a plumber, and I'm done. I've got about another 14 to go, so I'll do it the next time.
Thank you.
Take care.
Anyone else wish to come up and make comments? Yes, I saw a hand go up.
Good evening. I'm Phyllis Anders, 1837 Oak Ridge Road. I would like to ask the council to go ahead with the Farmhouse Community Center project. There's too much money already been involved in that, and I feel like that it's going to be giving the community what they're asking for as a community center. And we would lose a lot of money in returning the grants and also in paying back what they have already accomplished. So I would like you to consider that and give us what we would like to have on that instance. Another issue I wanted to bring up was the approval of the non-resident amount for the Youth Association. The tax dollars should not only be used for it should not be used for people outside of the Oak Ridge town. I would like to ask that you consider the, I believe, $12,000 that we asked for from the Parks and Rec in order to help the town, because the town is getting ready to provide 2 additional ball fields for Oak Ridge Youth Association. And these fields and everything are kept up by the town itself. And so this would help. And I don't see the fact that the Oak Ridge residents should go over all the expense of that, and this would be a great help. I know that they have paid $7, I believe, a player since it's first started in 2005. This is the first time we have wanted to increase the amount, and I would like you to consider that and help the town of Oak Ridge provide for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Okay, with that, we'll close out the first public comment section. There is another one later. We'll open up for now the town manager's report. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. The first item I have for you this evening is consideration of the appointment of Martha Pittman to the Mountains to Sea Trail Committee.
All right, we've been asked to appoint Martha Pittman to the Mountain to Sea Trail. Is there a motion to approve the appointment?
Mr. Mayor, I make the motion that we approve the appointment of Martha Pittman to the Mountains to Sea Trail.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I've spoken personally with Martha, and I know that she'll serve the town well on the committee. She's dedicated to the town and dedicated to trails, and she noted to me in our conversation this week, all she really wants to do is get her boots muddy, so get them muddy.
Anyone else have any comments?
I just want to add that I strongly support this as well. Martha brings with her a host also, in addition to Muddy Boots, a host of critical relationships in the broader trail community, to which Oak Ridge is increasingly connected and through which we've received a wide range of tangible supports, including guidance, grant money, and the like.
Anyone else wish to make a comment? Questions, observations? I fully support appointing Martha Pittman to the Trail Committee. As anyone that's worked on the trails, she definitely gets her boots muddy regularly. The reason we have such an extensive trail system is in large part because of volunteers like Martha. She's going to bring really good advice on what we should do with trails. She's going to tell it to us straight. And as Ms. Snyder mentioned, she has a lot of contacts and relationships with existing people. So she's definitely an asset that we want to make sure is on our trail system. So I'm very much in favor. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Second item I have is another committee appointment, Paul Kress to the Board of Adjustment.
Is there a motion to appoint Paul Kress to the Board of Adjustment?
I move that we appoint Paul Kress to the Board of Adjustment.
Is there a second? I'm sorry, who seconded it? Was it down at it? Oh, echo sounded like it came that way. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Welcome aboard. Next, you have some bleachers to give away?
Requesting that council surplus the very well-used town park bleachers at fields number 3 and 4. Or actually, this request is just for the bleachers in field number 3. We will be replacing those bleachers in this budget year, and by surplusing those bleachers, it allows us to essentially donate them to the Oak Ridge Youth Association, who will find a good home for them.
Excellent. Is there a motion to approve the surplusing of the Oak Ridge Town Park bleachers?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
And there are 2 other items of business I would like to request for council to consider this evening. The first is a request to amend the budget for the Veterans Honor Green to include a 10% contingency. As you'll recall, last month, the Town Council approved the contract with ASJ Wilson for $255,000 to construct the Veterans Honor Green. Typically, when we adopt our annual budget, we include contingencies as part of our capital project ordinances, but we don't always address those contingencies for projects that are bid slightly higher than what we included in our annual budget. So as with any contingency, obviously, we would hope never to need it, but it does allow staff to authorize minor change orders that could keep construction moving without delay, and would avoid having to take minor adjustments to council for multiple budget amendments if needed. The 10% contingency would increase the overall project budget by $25,500 to $280,500 total.
Now, one of the things you mentioned to me was that fundraising is continuing.
That's correct.
So as the fundraising continues, it will offset town money, okay? And typically, most of these, I'm sorry if I'm preempting the motion, but let me finish my thought. And most of these adjustments, you have a little bit of a heads up on, and you typically make us aware of it before as they come up and things like that. So they're typically not surprises. So, okay. With that said, is there a motion to approve the town manager asking for a contingency fund for the Veterans Honor Green?
So
I
moved.
move, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I made the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Hart, you made the motion. You're welcome to make any comments.
Well, I'm glad to see that we're continuing to move forward with the project and recognizing that we have that we want to get to a conclusion. And I also understand that we're now considering phases, and being someone that has recently contributed additional money to the Veterans Honor Green. I made my most recent one toward the second phase and would like that noted. But I'm fully in supportive of the continuation of this full project of the Veterans Honor Green.
Mr. Creason, you have any comments, questions?
No, sir. I'm good.
Mr. Stone?
Okay, maybe I'm not remembering correctly, but last month we voted on this, and it was 5% more than what the budget was for.
Right.
So is this 10% over the 5%, which would be 15%?
I'm guessing the math is probably about right, but yes, 10% over what you approved last month, which was 5% over the year. I guess they add up that way.
Okay, so why not just 10% over the original bid?
Well, the bid, 10% over the original, 10% over the budget would essentially be 5% over the bid, which may be adequate as well. I simply requested 10 because that's typically what we apply to projects for contingencies. If council's more comfortable with a 5% contingency, that very well may be perfectly adequate. Hopefully, like I said, we won't need to use it. It just gives me a little bit of a cushion if we do run across minor changes that I can authorize without having to take to council. 10% is just a standard figure that we normally apply.
Okay. Any other comments? Ms. Snyder?
Yeah, I think this is a fairly straightforward project, so it's unlikely that we're going to hit that 10, anywhere near that 10%, but I'm comfortable authorizing that to keep things simple in the future.
Yeah, because this is mainly a project that's on the surface of the ground. We're not digging down and building significant foundations. We're not anticipating, there's no existing structures, so we're not removing any structures. So it's basically a straightforward construction project. So I'm figuring that we're not. Now, if I understand, just to clarify, the original budget, you wanting 10% of the original budget?
10% over the project bid.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify
You're
that.
taking the
Okay, that's-
255 and you want $25,500.
That's correct.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Do we need to include that number in our, did that number need to be included in the motion?
Yes, that would be preferable. Since I didn't do a memo on this and I just stated that number in my comments.
Mr. Harden, would you amend your motion to include the dollar value?
That'll teach you.
Okay.
Make a motion to make a budget amendment to
Yeah,
add 25,500.
Okay, I make a motion that for the Veterans Honor Green, we set up a contingency budget of $25,500, which should cover the need for contingency, more than cover.
Is your second
A
still
second,
hold?
yes.
Okay.
definitely.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you. And finally, I'd just like to remind council that we have our annual capital improvement plan workshop scheduled for February 14th in the conference room here at Town Hall from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Public is encouraged to attend, and I'll provide another reminder at the next council meeting in February.
Okay, one thing that I'd like to suggest is that if we have the ability to either extend that session or another session, is to set up a work session so that we can just talk about things in general, above and beyond just the CIP. So I don't know if we have if there's availability that we can maybe add another hour onto the CIP or potentially set up a separate work session, where we can be in a much more informal session to talk about things.
At council's pleasure.
So, you guys okay with a work session?
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
That date was what?
What's the purpose of the work session? What are we working on?
Well, that's one of the things, like there's some policies that I mentioned last month, that there was a policy that I'd like to talk about. I know some of the new members of council would like to discuss how we set up our committees and staff and things like that, just to talk about it. And also some of the, just those are two of the things. But I also invite other topics from other members of council also.
CIP is pretty demanding discussion. I would personally suggest doing a work session like that separately.
That's fine.
But-
That's fine. I just want to have a work session, and if it was convenient, just to extend CIP, I'd say that, but if not, we can have a separate work session.
Whatever
So-
everybody else wants.
Yeah,
The date on that was what, February 14th,
That's the CIP one.
2 to 4,
Valentine's Day?
Valentine's Day. Get flowers, come here, then go home.
Go do it, too.
That's from 2 to 4. So I'm suggesting a separate work session then that we have, and like I said, it'd be open to other topics.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this will save time in the council comments part, because I was going to ask, at some point, we do need to meet, we need to talk about board and committee appointment procedures and our past practices versus what we want to do going forward. I just finished the North Carolina League of Municipalities ethics course, and they say that we need, required to have an ethics policy. Do we have that?
We do.
Okay, I couldn't find it on the website or anything like that, so I would also like to add that we probably need, and maybe it covers in the ethics policy, but accountability and transparency. Conflict of interest, this is the one when we did our orientation, that we have a conflict of interest policy for the town, but it doesn't extend to committees, and I would just like to discuss, should it? Social media policy, should that extend to the town council and committees as well, because it only applies to the town staff? And then I think that with the audiovisual upgrades that we're doing, the North Carolina League of Municipalities says that minutes for all of our meetings need to have a general accounting and provide that a citizen that's not in attendance would have a reasonable understanding of all the discussions and decisions. I think that's probably easiest handled through audio and video. If you look at some of our past minutes, they're probably a little sketchy in that case. So those are the types of things that I would like to discuss during a meeting staff.
Okay. And I encourage other members of council that if we're going to have a work session, that if there's some things you'd like to talk about, that you give the other members of council some heads up on what we're planning so that we can prepare for it. So, when we can schedule it, I'd like to see if we can schedule maybe a 2-hour session for a work session.
Okay, I can send out some possible dates. We do need for a special session some
Understand.
detail, like Mr. Stone provided, so when we have that level of detail, we can announce a meeting and set it. But we
Okay.
can certainly set a date before that time.
Sounds good. And at these work sessions, no decisions would be made. So it would just be a work session. We would not be voting on anything. Okay. Okay. We now have, anything else you'd like to?
That's all, thank you.
All right, thank you. Old business, a review of the Farmhouse Community Center project. I open it up for comments and discussion. Anyone's free to start the conversation. Mr. Harton, would you like to speak?
Sure. I've spent a lot of time looking at this issue, particularly since you issued your personal notes of the meeting that you attended with Bill and Councilman Greason with Bar Construction. At that meeting, or from that meeting, you indicated that the walk-away with Bar was somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000. That is in addition to the already $60,000 spent on the project. So from your notes, already $135,000 to $60,000 range. When I look back at it, one thing I noticed between that issue and the other scenarios that were presented is that estimate did not include the $38,500 previously spent for architectural design, which was $18,500. Changes in the plan for power and HVAC, which was another $2,500. And bidding and negotiation fees from Hill Studios, which was $17,500. That also has been spent beyond Bar. It's not shown if there was a separate exit fee from Hill Studios. I don't think it would be as much as bar, but it would be something. And I also assume that in that situation, that the grants that would have been obtained would not be available since we would be stopping the project. Considering these issues, I estimated that the total cost of the scenario is really somewhere in the neighborhood of $175,000 to $200,000 plus demolition costs, which I have no estimate, but just assume somewhere in the $15,000+ range. So to me, the walking away from the bar contract is a $200,000 to $220,000 impact on the community, part of which we've already spent. The other scenario was stabilizing the building. From your notes, that was estimated to be about $400,000. Again, it didn't have any of the additional upfront expenses that I mentioned, so that was just, from a bar standpoint, I think. So it would be to stabilize the building, but to not put anything inside of it. I don't know what the impact would be on any available grants, but again, we do not have a usable building in that case, and the cost is just shy of $440,000. The last option considered, and what was I consider to be from your discussion with Barr and yours and Mr. Greason's and Mr. Bruce's, it was to continue the project as, again, this amount includes now the $338,500 that I previously mentioned. The other thing I noticed is that within that number was their addition expenses for a septic tank and what was stated to be on-site parking of $40,000. And that was positioned as a portion of the, was the town park entrance master plan. So to me, I can understand that would be part of the project, but I don't think that was necessarily impact of the building itself. With that, we already know we have a grant of $380,000 for the town, and when I looked at it, the scenario 3, which was continuing with the grant fully established, would be about $289,000. So I think from your discussion with Barr, you were suggesting number 3. I just spent more time to try to get more facts and numbers associated with the project, and I fully support what you stated in your memo to us.
Mr. Greason, would you like to chime in on anything?
If we could get the money transferred to another project, I'd be all for canceling it. If it could be used somewhere else, my thoughts. But, it's gone a long ways at this point. The longer we go, the more it's going to cost to get out of it. So, you just look at the numbers, it's probably better off to finish it. Like I say, if we could use the money somewhere else, I'd be for that. But if we it's a decision we need to make quickly if we're going to do it. We can't just keep putting it down the road.
Mayor Pro Tem Stone, comments?
Yeah. So going through the same scenarios that Jim walked through, if we walk away from the project today, it's going to save us $500,000 of taxpayer money. If we stabilize the building and use the $400,000, then it still saves us $250,000 of taxpayers' money. The part that bothers me on option number 2 is it's $400,000, but it's only for 4 line items when you look at what your conversation was. Foundation poured and stabilized, because without this, the building's unstable. So foundation. Address termite damage, and if you've been inside the building, windows to provide weather protection, and roof for weather protection. $400,000 for a roof, windows, termite damage, and granted, a foundation would be expensive for a 1,500 square foot house. I just see that, I mean, it's currently 1,000, but, you know.
400 was not putting an addition on it, though.
Yeah, 400 was not putting the addition on it. That's true. So, yeah, the foundation would be for a 1,000 square foot house, not for a 1,500. So, you know, this thing started, it was $250,000, and there were citizens that said that was expensive. And then it went to $450, and then it went to $630, and with $620, and then, you know, with Jim Harton's numbers, which I trust him with these numbers, I think they're right. There's information, there's money that haven't been even added to this whole thing. We're talking a $750,000 project or more. So I have serious issues with spending that much money on that little house. For now, yeah.
Okay, no, fine. We can have more.
Yeah.
We can go back and forth. Schneider, comments?
Well, I'm a little tired of rehashing this decision. Many residents support this project, and I don't mind disagreement, and we've certainly had it, and it sounds like we'll continue to have it. But we need to act in the best interests of the town and its future. That means going forward on an investment in a new facility to serve our residents. It's also an investment in our town park and in our rural historic district. This project will beautify a key corner of our town park and will tell the story of the tenant farmers who worked on the over 140 acres of historic farmland now owned by the town to generations to come. This wasn't a fly-by-night decision. It was researched and considered carefully over 4+ years. You're right, the costs have gone up. But the costs of our park went up similarly. They went up from $1.8 million, the early estimate, with a full master plan, it went up to $3.5 million, and then now it's over $7 million. This is the environment that we have been working and planning in over the past 5 years. You can't budget for something 5 years ago and expect, if it has anything to do with construction, for the numbers to stay good. As a reminder, we've got a signed contract. The project is underway. Any changes continue to strike me as outside the regular order of the business of this town. Maybe more to the point, they strike me as emotional and unfounded. I think we're all against wasteful spending. In this case, stopping the project and allowing this historic farmhouse, which is a contributing structure tracked by the state of North Carolina as a key element in our rural historic district, means throwing money away to the tune of around $220,000 and possibly up to $250,000. I'm against that because that's wasteful spending. I'm also against having to ask our HPC as the town to allow us to demolish this building, something that we would have to do if we don't renovate it. Demolishing it would signal to every historic property owner in our town that we don't care about preservation standards that we hold them to, that we're not willing to preserve the single historic building that the town owns. I'm also against preserving the farmhouse without a use, which will make it a maintenance burden for future councils and residents. Preserving a historic structure like the farmhouse, it isn't an end in itself. Our town isn't a museum where you look through the windows of old homes preserved for no use. Rather, our historic district has at its heart a much more reasonable and profitable course, a middle way between preservation for its own sake and loss of historic resources. That middle way argues that the best way to preserve a historic structure is by giving it a new use. Without that, why would future councils and residents want to maintain it? In the case of the farmhouse, the new use as an indoor rental space and community center would create revenue that would pay for the house's maintenance and contribute to the general budget. So there's a financial problem here too, though. The net cost of preserving the house without a use would be $440,000, possibly offset by $75,000 if we can keep the state grant. As for the county money, I'm certain that the county would withdraw their funding for this project, which was approved as part of Chairman Skip Alston's One Guilford initiative, which was focused on projects that could serve the broader county. So 440, keep that in mind. Maybe minus 75, so that's around, what is that, 365. But the net cost of renovating, the full renovation, including furnishing, septic, and everything, is and even the $40,000, which is a high estimate for the on-site parking, that's actually part of a separate project, that full renovation cost is $339,000, almost $100,000 less than preserving it as a museum, and throws none of the money away. Which one of these paths is wasteful? Thank you.
I don't think anybody said we're talking about
Let me
demolishing it.
Let me finish my comments, and then we can talk more. As everybody knows, I was not in favor of this project to this level. I voted against it. I felt we should have taken a different approach. We should have taken an approach of preserving the building, and any uplift and things like that, we would consider maybe doing fundraising and things like that. I was never in favor of demolishing the building. With that said, even though I was against the project, I believe we've gone far enough that to stop the project and go back, or attempt to go back, would be not a very good use of the money. If we had gone with the plan of preserving the building so that future people could fundraise and finish the inside or restore it or something like that, we would have taken a completely different bid process. And we probably, I would guess that it wouldn't cost $400,000 just to stabilize and preserve the building. We could have done something differently. So yes, I'm not in favor of the project to begin with, but I believe we've gone to the point where it makes sense to finish it, okay? So that's where I'm going from right now. Like I said, I am extremely conflicted by the whole thing because of where my decision is, but I think it's prudent to continue the project. Now that everyone's had their said, please, we can have open discussion back and forth. Mr. Greason, did you have some comments?
Like I say, I don't think anybody wants to demolish it.
Yeah.
That's my only thought, at this point.
Additional comments from anyone?
So to Ann's comment, the county would withdraw the money. We don't know that because we haven't asked.
I've asked.
And I've asked too, and it's not a council thing. It needs to go through our town attorney to the county attorney. We haven't asked our town attorney to do that. So it's just, we don't know. It's an assumption. But to date, not a single town council member, past or present, has answered one key question, and that is exactly how much money are you willing to spend on this project? What's the maximum dollar amount? Not a penny more. And the past town council didn't answer the question, and I'm struggling to get anybody to say that it's going to be this amount and not a penny more. Now, let's be clear. This isn't preservation, and this isn't restoration. This is full-on construction. So I appreciate the passion, and I appreciate that there's this nostalgic and emotional commentary that's surrounding the farmhouse building, but you're not saving anything. The only thing that's going to be left when this is done is the front facade and the clapboards on two sides. It's already gutted, so everything from a construction standpoint is going to be new stuff, and it's going to be expensive new stuff. It's not historic.
Other comments?
Well, I mean, I think you're not understanding what our historic district is about. It's about the exterior of buildings. This building has a beautiful double roof line, a beautiful double chimney. It has a 1930s era craftsman style porch. All of that will be preserved. This is part of the visual landscape, the historic rural landscape of our town, and it is definitely historic, and it is definitely preservation. There was an article today about Myrick Howard, who has been very helpful to our town, and he's being given an award because he's been one of the preservation leaders in North Carolina. He headed Preservation North Carolina for many years. And it talks about how he could walk up to a building that was almost falling down and see a historic building and see the potential for that to be renovated and reused and be preserved. That is indeed preservation.
Any other comments? Yes, Mr. Greason.
Could I just ask the question, while we're putting an asphalt roof on it, if this is 1930s, what would it cost to put a tin roof on it? What was the ad for that? I know
Well,
going a different way.
Actually, former council members, Spencer Sullivan investigated putting a metal roof on it, and it actually increased the cost.
How much? 10,000, 5,000?
So
I could answer that.
yes, Mr. Taylor.
It was almost quadruple the cost.
I mean, I don't know what that asphalt
To
sheet
do
is gonna
a-
cost for 1,500 square feet, but
That's actually, the asphalt roof's the one, the lower expenses for the whole project.
I mean, was it $5,000 for tin roof?
No,
No,
like 30,
it was like 30 to 40
more.
more.
'Cause I'd like, if we go with it, I'd like to see it.
We also determined that the original roof was most likely not a standing seam roof, which would be beautiful, I agree, but it would have been a flat tin roof. So,
It originally would have had what's known as a 5V crimp metal roof on it, which is what you would see on most rural structures, more agricultural barns and things like that, as an example. It's not as expensive as a standing seam roof, but metal costs right now are through the roof. And I did this estimate based on by putting it together as just the material cost without even figuring in labor. The material cost was way above.
I'm just curious.
I
think it should have a
Any-
tin roof on it.
Any other comments?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So the nice part about serving on town council is it's all about math, and all you have to do is be able to count to three. I can count to three. So this is pretty simple. But what's not simple is that going forward, I'm going to ask for all the information on the Redmond House spending on a sheet of paper separate from everything else, everything that we've already spent, the things that Jim pointed out earlier, what we're spending, and we're going to see where this number lands, because I'm telling you, it's going to be a huge number, but I can count to three. The other thing that I want to make sure that everybody understands is that this house is going to cost 4 times more than the most opulent house per square foot than any house in Oak Ridge. The average square footage of a house is about $109 a square foot in Oak Ridge. This one's going to cost about 4 times that. Using the figures that we've got, $420 a square foot. That's just extreme. Look, the people in the town elected me, told me that there were two things that they were very upset about, and that was the increased taxes and the excessive spending on Redmond. And that's what I ran on, and I said that I would keep bringing these issues up until the point where there's no reason to bring it up anymore. So I'm doing what I said I was going to do. If we put it to a vote and put it to a rest, then that's fine. But I'm going to pit bull it, and I'm going to shine a light on it. I think that most, if not all, the town council members sitting up here ran or are running on a platform of fiscal conservatism. The farmhouse project ain't. This is going to be a fiscal anchor around the political necks of those people that support it, and that's okay. But that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. You can be upset with me, or you can think that I'm being a jerk about it, but I'm doing what I promised to do when I was campaigning.
Okay. Unless there's a motion to alter the direction we're going in, I don't believe we need any action. If someone wants to make a motion that we want to change direction, that's fine. But if we're not going to change direction, I don't believe we need a motion for anything. Okay? Move forward. New business. Consideration approval of the Oak Ridge Youth Association Uses Agreement. Would you give an introductory on that? And also, we have our Recreation Director here if we have any other questions also. And also, our Assistant Clerk was very instrumental in, or at least observing it. So we have a lot of people here that can answer a lot of questions for us.
I'll just say a few brief words of introduction. The annual Oak Ridge Youth Association usage agreement reflects the longstanding partnership between ORYA and the town in providing an exceptional youth sports program, and acknowledges the town's support of local athletic programming through construction and maintenance of facilities and subsidized field usage fees. Every year, the staff and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and ORYA take a look at the agreement with fresh eyes to see if there's anything that needs to be refreshed or updated. Changes in this year's version of the agreement were proposed by both ORYA and by town staff and went through multiple reviews and revisions at the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. The document that's in your packets has been recommended by the board for council's approval tonight. And I'll briefly highlight several of the notable changes in this year's agreement. First, it incorporates the new Heritage Farm Park as a facility available to ORYA and the two additional multi-purpose fields under construction there. It simplifies and streamlines the promotional and marketing material requirements that ORYA produces to highlight the partnership with the town. And third, it restructures the non-resident user fee calculation. The previous agreement charged a per-player fee for registrants who lived outside of the corporate limits of the town, which was collected by ORYA as a pass-through to the town. The new agreement proposes a flat monthly fee that can be deducted from ORYA's annual credit of field usage fees to account for non-resident usage. As you mentioned, our Parks and Recreation Director, Terry Landon, is here, and co-chair of the board, John Browning. Randy Collins from ORYA is here as well, and along with Ashley to answer any questions.
Okay, I think the appropriate thing here would be to ask for a motion to approve, amend, reject the agreement. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we accept the 2024 Oak Ridge Youth Association agreement with the following change: that we remove line item 4B, the non-residential usage fee, from the agreement.
Motion's made. Is there a second? Motion's made and seconded for discussion. Mr. Stone, you may start.
Yep. The single best marketing tool in the entire town for businesses in the town alike is when the park's filled up every single day and every single night with kids. All these folks have to eat somewhere, and we're talking about non-residential fees. Oak Ridge residents can eat at home, but if you're non-residential, you might more easily eat in town before or after the games and practices. They buy groceries, they buy coffee, desserts, snacks, they buy gas here. Getting all those people into the town has a greater benefit than all the monies that we're talking about. In other words, the Youth Association is doing exactly what we would hope that it would do, provide recreational opportunities for the citizens and provide business support for tax revenue. When the Youth Association is using the park, people don't drive by and go, look what the Youth Association's doing. The town gets the credit. They look at what the town has going on. And right or wrong, even with Ridgefest, when the park is full, the town gets the credit for it. So I think that what we need to do is we need to focus on what do we do to facilitate the best working relationship with the Youth Association and with the town and the businesses. We're talking about the difference of $12,000, and not to beat a dead horse, but we just spent a whole bunch of money on the last vote. I don't think that $12,000 is going to hurt the town, not one iota.
Mr. Greason?
You know, I totally agree 100% with what he said. You know, we got state-funded money to build this park, so we didn't pay for it all. I know we are paying for the upkeep of it, but there was a state grant to help build the park, so Town of Oak Ridge didn't pay for all that. So, you know, like I say, the $12,000 a year is pretty steep. I don't see why we can't forgive it this year. We're not giving them an increase in their stipend that they're getting in 4 years or 3 years. They're still getting the same amount, but we're going to take away $12 grand from them. I'm against that.
Mr. Harden?
I spent a lot of time reviewing this document. I read it 5 times. That included the 4B statement that ORYA will be invoiced the amount of $1,200 monthly, excluding the months of June and December for non-resident field usage at OR, the town park and the Heritage Farm Park. That's what I was looking at all week, as I also reflected back on the page 9, which was where the non-resident surcharge had existed and was scratched. I was surprised and I would say disappointed that the line that the support documentation will be in the form of rosters that must include the home addresses of each player. I think when I was elected, what I said in December is I intend to try to be fact-based, and I spent a lot of time trying to get information this week and understanding where the 12,000 came from, how it related back to, I think it was 8, Ms. Anders said 7, but I think it was 8 over the last number of years. And I can't find in the work I did where I can substantiate anything relative to the $12,000 fee that was in the original document that we removed. Now, relative to the proposal to remove the $12,000, I'm even more surprised. I think, you know, that we're here for the benefit of all Oak Ridge citizens and Oak Ridge citizens who have invested in these parks. And when you look at the agreement that was here just previously, Oak Ridge, the town of Oak Ridge was offering 2 extra fields in this agreement in the Heritage Farm Park, and we were not getting any support documentation of who is playing on our fields that are not from Oak Ridge. I think what was good about the $8 fee or whatever that proposal, because I heard that the discussion went between $8 and $15, and I don't know how that relates to the 12,000 anymore, because I don't have the information as to who, who's in the park and who's playing in the park that is from the town of Oak Ridge. So I was concerned about the document as written. I'm even more concerned that there's a proposal to even drop the 12,000. I would like to see from, and I got nothing against Oak Ridge Youth Association. I just recognize that as a 71-year-old, the only person I know or have met that's associated is Mr. Collins, Mr. Randy Collins, and I consider him a respectful gentleman. But I don't understand why we would abandon the 12,000. I don't understand how the 12,000 relates to the past. I think it's important to non-residents that they have some stated skin in the game. And I think that would help to make sure that our park is maintained and respected. So I'll stop there.
Ms. Schneider?
Yeah, it's interesting comment. This is interesting to think about at this juncture. We're all very grateful for the terrific programs that ORYA provides to our youth, and I'm in favor of most aspects of this agreement. I don't understand the idea of no longer charging. So by eliminating the $12,000 fee, I believe that Councilman Stone is saying that there would be no non-resident fee. This is a long-standing and common best practice for towns that this is touching on what Councilman Harton was saying, is that we've all paid for this park. We have received some grants. This is approximately a $7 million endeavor for our new park, and lots of money sunk into our old park, and not to mention annually, the major part of our budget, and a big portion of that goes to maintaining those fields. We got a $490,000 grant from the state, and we got $1.65 million in ARPA funds, and we had to take out a loan. So the new park is not anywhere near being paid for. I have trouble thinking about striking the non-resident fee altogether. I think the way it came about was ORYA said, you know, it's difficult for them, and we were willing to help them with this, but to get that, to figure out which people to get that fee from. But Adrian Eckenrod on our Parks and Rec board said, you know, we can help you track that. And we do want to know how many residents and non-residents. So that's something that's important to me to know. And I think what they said is, well, it's difficult to do, so let's estimate it based on last year's numbers, which was the last 2 years were around $1,000. So if you look at a $12 fee, that's where you get to the $12,000. So simply offset the $30,000 by the $12,000. I just am against all of the expenses of our athletic fields and our new park construction being put onto Oak Ridge town residents with none of that burden going to non-residents. I think it's appropriate, and I think the majority of Oak Ridge residents believe that. We've been hearing that for years, that that's important to people. I actually have never heard anything to the contrary, except at this Parks and Rec meeting that I went to, where there was a lot of upset about the increase, which hasn't been increased for 15 years. So going from $8 to $12 doesn't seem wrong to me. Our primary allegiance as council has to lie with our residents, even though we invite and we encourage non-resident use of our park, and we welcome them. But this is a program that we offer basically through an outsourced Parks and Rec program. And you can say it's only $12,000, but this is real money going forward. You look at this fee going up gradually through inflation, you look at over years to come, you look at the increased maintenance costs of our park. This adds up to a lot of money over the next 10 years. I want to add back in, if I were to rewrite this the way I would like it, I would give ORYA the choice of either paying it as a lump sum based on the last year, so the $12,000 option, or paying $12 per player. But I would state that we want to have the rosters and we want to have the numbers of non-residents, because we need to know that for our future planning for this town. Finally, I see that a financial statement is due as part of the agreement and that we didn't even get last year's. So I would prefer not to approve this until we have that statement. Thank you.
I appreciate what, the Youth Association basically runs our sports program for the most part. There are valid arguments that if we ran our own sports program, we would obtain the revenue from that sports program. We would have some administrative responsibilities and things like that. But there's no reason not to expect that if we ran our own program, that we would be able to cover some of our costs, above and beyond the costs of running the program itself. Also, all the items in the park, we do charge a non-resident fee for. So if you rent a shelter in the park and you're a resident, you get one rate, and if you're a non-resident, you pay another one. It's not dramatically different, but it's a different rate. I don't know how to suggest it, but I think this was definitely an attempt to make the process a little more seamless. I agree that we want the Youth Association to be actively using the park. And like I said, as Mr. Stone said, when you see activity in the park, a lot of people say, gee, the town's doing a great job. So I get it that we get a lot of the credit, even though the Youth Association is doing it. But also the Youth Association gets a lot of credit too. So I don't think it's being missed there. I greatly appreciate what they're doing, but in talking to residents say, well, shouldn't the non-residents have some, as Mr. Harton said, some skin in the game? Now, by no stretch of the imagination is $12,000 offsetting the cost of running the park from a non-resident standpoint. So if you're trying to add up how much, as taxpayers, we run there. So I'm not in favor of eliminating the non-resident fee. I'm definitely open for new ways of calculating it, new ways of making it, okay? New ways of making it a little more seamless. Now, I spoke with the Youth Association, and I asked, if we did away with the non-resident fee, would they stop collecting? And they said yes. If we kept the non-resident fee, will you continue to collect it? They said yes. So as far as the financial impact of the Youth Association, it's a pass-through. It is not affecting their financial stability one way or the other. If we didn't collect it, they wouldn't collect it. If we have them collect it, they will continue to collect it. That's what I heard from the president of the Youth Association. If we continue to charge it, they will continue to collect it. If that's changed, you can clarify that. But like I said, I think there's some obligation for the non-residents to have a little bit of skin in the game. So I'm definitely in favor of leaving the non-resident fee in. I'm open for creative ways of accounting for that and things like that to make it more seamless. And I think that was definitely an attempt here, was make it seamless and reduce the administrative burden. So I'm in favor of leaving it in. Further comments?
And with that, again, I think the information we don't need specifics to individuals, but I think we need to know how many people are playing and how many people of those are from the Oak Ridge residents and how many are the non-residents. So I think the information is important too for further planning.
Mr. Stone, did you have some further comments?
Do we just delay the vote for another month and see what we can get from them? What's the best way of doing it? Can they give us, do they actually have 1,000 people that are playing in the park of Oak Ridge?
Mr. Greason, can I ask you to speak in your microphone?
My question is, do we need to delay it and ask them to give us the information? Is there actually 1,000 people that's playing at the Oak Ridge Park? Or is some of them playing at the elementary school? We wouldn't collect any money if they were playing there off of the out-of-town fee.
According to our Parks and Rec director, those were the numbers. It was something like 1,100 in 2021 and 900 in 2022. So those numbers are accurate for non-resident players playing on our fields, and Ashley's nodding her head yes. She's the
Because I thought that
liaison.
was the problem we were having, was getting those numbers.
Nope, we got those numbers. The problem is that in this agreement, it's not asking them to track those numbers going forward.
I would think we would probably still ask on an annual basis for them to give us some idea of what the non-resident count is, so that each year we could evaluate whether or not non-resident fee is still in the ballpark. I would think that it's not in the agreement, but I would think it would be something that I would expect the Parks and Rec would say, well, hey, what was your head count last year for non-residents, so that we can have some kind of validation that the $12,000 is still reasonable. So, and by the same token, if the non-resident rate went way down, which I don't expect it to be, we could accommodate that way. So I don't know that it has to be in the agreement, but I think it would be something I would expect Parks and Rec would ask.
Well, I agree, but I think if it's not in the agreement, then you're not obligated.
I understand.
And I think if you go to page 9 where it's struck out, the statement, the support documentation will be in the form of rosters that must include the home address of each player.
I'm sorry, Jim, where's
That's-
that? Where's
Page
that?
9.
That's page 9,
strikeout.
13, strikeout. There's
Oh,
one
okay,
simple
thank you.
line that's missing that could have been put in the previous notations.
Well, one thing we're in the position that if you wanted to amend this agreement, add that back in, we could, as part of this process. We do need to resolve the motion that's on the table first, but depending on the outcome of that motion, you can make a motion to amend the agreement, just as Mr. Stone made a motion to amend the
I
agreement.
think we could
Mr.
also
Bruce?
make an amended motion. I'd like to offer an amended motion.
Did you want to clarify something first?
I was just going to also point out, in the context of continuing the discussion, that this current agreement expired on December 31st, so there is some urgency in getting a new agreement approved.
All right.
I'd like to offer an amended motion that we approve the ORYA contract with the addition, add back in the requirement that ORYA will, on page 9, will submit to ORPRD accounting for the number of non-residents in their programs using ORTP or HFP, those are the park names, and based thereon, the ORYA will assess, so stop there. And I'm not sure where it would go, but I would like to have, as part of this motion, a provision that they either provide the surcharge of $12 for each player registered, each non-resident rostered participant, or that they choose the $12,000 deduction from the stipend.
I'm a little confused whether or not
Quite
our
confused.
procedures allow such an amendment. I don't believe it does.
My understanding is that the motion that's been made and properly seconded should be
Disposed of first.
disposed first.
Actually, it goes the other way around, if you refer to the rules of,
I thought it was difficult to make substitute motions.
no, it's not, especially if you're simply substituting different conditions. That's the whole point of a substitute motion.
Well, then wouldn't I just make a substitute motion to your substitute motion?
There can only be one substitute motion on the table at once.
Well,
So, but,
I think you might need to rephrase your motion that you're making a substitute, not an amended.
well, it's the same thing. They're both, in our rules of procedure, it uses the word amended motion, not substitute, even though in some Roger, what's his name's rules?
Robert's rules.
Robert's rules, not Roger. They use the word substitute motion, but in our rules, it calls it an amended motion.
Well, okay, if we feel that the amended motion has been properly made, there'll need to be a second.
Second.
Okay, now we start up here to discussion on the amended motion. You made the motion, so you
Yeah,
made.
I think I've already spoken to it. Thank you.
Anyone else would like, Mr. Harton, would you like to speak?
Just, just literally this afternoon, did I hear of those, what Councilman Snyder said, 1,132 non-residents and 902 in, I don't know if that was 22 or 23, but anyway, that was the ballpark. Just the percentage of that was just shy of 60% non-residents.
Mr. Greason?
No comments.
Mr. Stone?
So, back to some of these comments, let's talk about skin in the game. The park was built with a lot of state money. I believe those people are state residents. We don't charge a fee to non-Oak Ridge residents for Heritage Day, not to set up for it, not to come to it. We don't charge the Merchants Association a pass-through fee for non-residents to come to Ridge Fest or to use the Bark Park or to enjoy music in the park. When we have a ball tournament, Oak Ridge teams or teams that have Oak Ridge residents don't get a discount because they've got Oak Ridge players on it. This is, you want to talk about skin in the game, we're separating out the Youth Association, calling out separately, we're providing $30,000 and then, oh, wait a minute, we're going to take $12,000 back. Why not just take the the pass-through fee of $12,000 out and just tell them we're going to give them $18,000? I mean, because that's in fact what we're doing. So I have a little bit of a problem with the consistency part of it. Would we really be pleased as a town if we started charging non-residents to use our park or any part of it? You mentioned that we do charge non-residents to use like the picnic shelters. Do we really want to start charging non-residents for everything they do in our park? That seems kind of snobbish to me. In many cases, these kids attend the same middle school and high schools as their friends that they're playing with in the town park. They attend the same churches and the same synagogues, the same scout troops as their friends that live in Oak Ridge. These aren't those people. These are just kids that are in the youth association. So what does the town get for the non-Oak Ridge resident fee? In other words, what's the goal of the fee? It can't be to run some operation. It's $12,000. You know, so why are we offsetting it? Who came up with the idea, at whose directive, what town council, that we had to make back $12,000 from the youth association for their programs? We don't want to run a youth association. You don't want parents calling you, you being the staff or town council. You don't want to hire coaches and referees and umpires. You don't want to buy the equipment. You don't want the liability that goes along with it and trying to find the volunteers to staff it. The youth association does more for this town than we do for it. Now, it is a symbiotic relationship. We do a lot for the youth association as well. But I just don't understand why we would look at this as anything more than we're doing everything that we can to provide an opportunity for kids to get outdoors and play with other kids, socially interacting and developing some young adults. I just don't understand why we would put any obstacle in the way of that.
Yeah, just to reiterate, whether we do or don't charge the non-resident fee, the financial status of the Youth Association doesn't change. They charge the non-resident fee if we charge it, and they will pass it. It's basically a pass-through. I know it's confusing, you know, the way we do it, because it does look like we're taking $12,000 away from their stipend, But because they're collecting that $12,000, we are not taking anything away from their stipend. They're still getting $30,000 worth of use of the park for no charge. Every other facility they use, they pay much more for. They spend $20,000 to $30,000 to mow the grass at the elementary school. They pay for the fields at CrossFit. They pay for the fields at Orma. They gave $30,000 scholarship to Orma. So the Youth Association gets great value from this park. Terry and his staff give them world-class fields. Their ball fields, the ball fields here are laser graded, so they're laser leveled, okay? My wife, as a physical therapist when she worked, she said when she got patients that would say, oh, you're from Oak Ridge? Oh, my kids love playing up there. Now, you go to the elementary school, you're playing on a rock-hard field. You go to CrossFit, you're playing on a rock-hard field. You go to Orma, I don't want to disparage them, but they have a field that has challenges. You know, it's a low field, it has drainage issues. So the Youth Association is getting a world-class park for no charge. I think most years they're within $1,000 of their stipend. Is that, Terry? I think they may have paid $1,000. Okay. So they basically paid $1,000 to use our park, okay? Now, there's no question. They provide a service to us because we do not have to provide it. But like I said, if I gave Terry the floor, he would make a solid argument that if we ran our own program, we would collect a lot more revenue than we do now. We also gave up tournaments on the weekends, $15,000 to $30,000 worth of tournament revenue that we gave up so that the Youth Association can rightly have access to the ball fields. And I encouraged that. I was fine with giving up the $15,000 to $30,000 worth of revenue because I want the kids to play in our park. So we've already given up $15,000 to $30,000 worth of real money. Okay? Now, we can quibble about that, but, you know, Terry, I could have Terry come up here and quote you numbers and figures of the tournaments he's given up because we wanted to open up the fields to the Youth Association. So I want the Youth Association to have all this access. I want them to have unfettered, almost unfettered access to the park. But I think this is a small ask that they charge their non-residents a little bit of money so that there is a skin in the game. And we do this. I've had some pressure with the fact that the Youth Association gave $30,000 to Orma. That's magically the same number as our stipend. People have come up to me and said, oh, you're underwriting the donation you made to Orma. You're giving ORYA $30,000 in a stipend, and that matches exactly the amount of money you gave to Orma. Isn't that kind of underwriting the donation to Orma? Now, that's their business, what they want to do. But like I said, I think people need to understand the full story of what the Youth Association is getting from us. And I freely want to give it to them. And when the new fields, I would be very open to exploring additional stipend so that you would be encouraged to use those additional fields. So I want the Youth Association to come and use the park as much as possible. But I think this is a small ask to say, hey, look, charge your non-residents a little bit of money, and so that they have a little bit of skin in the game. So that's where I am on this. So I definitely am not in favor of letting go the stipend at this point. If there's no further discussion, there is a motion on the floor that basically says the stipend will, the non-resident fee will remain. The Youth Association will have the option of either paying the $12,000 or paying it on a census basis. Is that correct?
$12 per, yeah.
Yeah, they can either pick the census version or the flat fee.
And they would provide the rosters and the
Roster.
numbers.
Okay. Do we want to let Mr. Collins have a comment of any kind? I don't think so. Yeah, well, if we had a question for you, we'd ask you, but it's not in our process to, it's not in our process to have comments. If public comment, you'd be allowed. I understand. I appreciate that. Okay. All right. Okay, there's a motion on the table. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, so it was 3-2, okay? With that, the original motion is no longer applicable. Okay, what's next? Presentation of the interlocal agreement with Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utilities.
Give me a moment to
All right, that's fine.
advance my agenda here.
Does anyone like to take a short?
That
break?
would be a good idea.
Would you like? Let's take a 5-minute break.
1 minute break.
Thank you. how, but kind of exploded.
Oh, jeez.
Trying not to touch my face. All right, continue with the presentation of the local agreement. This is just familiarizing us with the agreement.
That's right. This is purely an informational item. The document is available for review for council or any citizen over the next 30 days. I will be asking council for approval at the February meeting. This is just an opportunity to introduce it. I'll keep my comments fairly brief. I know it's late, and there's been a lot of business before you already. But I do want to just quickly summarize the draft interlocal agreement with Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utility Commission, and this would dictate the terms of the sale of water to the town of Oak Ridge. The Water Advisory Committee has reviewed multiple drafts of this agreement over the last 6 months and recommends the attached draft for the town council's approval in February. The draft, like I said, is presented simply for information tonight. The agreement authorizes the sale of up to 350,000 gallons of water per day for the town's distribution and use. The town would be subject to the commission's wholesale rate of $517, which is a monthly charge, plus approximately $3.60 per 1,000 gallons. The Utility Commission would install a meter at the line's current terminus on NC 150 at the county line, at which point the town would access with a 12-inch water main, which is currently under design by our engineering team at Wooten, to deliver water to customers along NC 150 and to the proposed elevated tank that would be located behind Town Hall. I also want to note that the agreement also requires the payment of a one-time reserve capacity fee of $217,000, which reserves the town's maximum daily allowance throughout the agreement's 30-year term. I will say that we are currently negotiating with the staff at the Utility Commission on the terms of when that payment would be applicable. I feel like it's important for the town council to know that we are fully committed to a water system before we'd be making a payment to the Utility Commission to reserve that water. Chairman of the Water Advisory Committee, Spencer Sullivan, is here tonight. Mr. Harton is council liaison and former chair of the committee. Between the three of us, I hope we can answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Greason, questions?
No.
Stone?
Not at this time, no.
Mr. Harton?
I'm pretty well up to date on it. I would say that the agreement that's being presented, Bill mentioned that we've been through numerous revisions, and I think that him and the staff and our town lawyer, also EnvironLink and Wooten, who have helped us craft this current document. The first one we got for Winston-Salem, I would say, was very confusing, and it seemed to be like a cut and paste from many different documents. I think through this process, we've learned a lot on the Water Advisory Committee, but I think Winston-Salem Forsyth County has also learned a lot, and they've crafted them from their standpoint. They've been very willing to adjust to our recommendations, wordings, and things. So this is a much cleaner document that you're going to read compared to what we've suffered through for the last year.
Ms. Snyder?
Yeah, and I would agree wholeheartedly with that. This is a good document.
There's a lot in this document. It is a public document, so if you'd like to come to Town Hall, it's not up on the website yet, no. But if you'd like to come to Town Hall and read it, you're welcome to come Town Council and read it. It is a legal document that basically just outlines our relationship between Winston-Salem, Forsyth County Water System, and us. The main thing is we definitely want to make that $217,000 thing only contingent upon us actually hooking up. So that would be something we would have to do for. So I don't have any questions. I've been getting a briefing on it a little bit more. But again, anyone else that wants to come to Town Hall, including members of council, that wants to take a look at the legal document, I encourage you to. Any other comments, questions? There's nothing for us to do tonight, okay? The next item is consideration approval of Resolution R 2024-01 to hold a public hearing to close a public trail easement. This resolution just puts it on our next month's agenda to consider releasing a developer from an easement that they gave us to the town. What we're going to do is we're going to, even though we don't have to, Planning and Zoning is going to hold a public hearing format to basically discuss the item and then give us our recommendation. And then at our February meeting, we would actually have a public hearing on whether or not to give back the easement or not, okay? So the resolution tonight does not give any indication about what anyone's planning on voting for or against. It's just a formality to say we are going to do this. Do I need to read the resolution? Okay. I don't think I need to read the resolution.
I don't think that's
Okay.
necessary.
All right, so basically, like I said, this is one of those things that we just have to do. It's a formality. So I need a motion to approve this resolution.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, is there any discussion on the resolution? Again, like I said, this is not saying you're in favor of giving the easement up or keeping it. It's just that we're going to have this hearing next month. Okay? If there's any other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. Monthly financial report. Sorry, Ann.
Or as I like to say, the most invigorating moment of the meeting. You got to have some fun about dull stuff. I've told y'all the ancient definition that CPAs aren't dull. We just get excited about dull stuff.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. But with that said, monthly financials, we're holding strong balance sheet position. Total assets, $3.935 million. The liabilities, $54,895. We got some deferred inflows. Total liabilities of $68,000. This doesn't include our debt service, which is in a separate schedule. And then fund balances of $3.866 million, of which $2.2 million is committed to capital projects. For the month, we brought in $183,708.65. Expenses were $1,995,4321, which is the capital. Big reason for that is the capital payments on the park. They had a couple of huge bills came in on that. The playground equipment for the new playground came in, was paid for. We had the lighting payment. So, that's to be expected with a large capital project underway. On Schedule 1 is the cash balances at our three depositories with Truist, Bank of Oak Ridge, Piedmont Federal. And then behind that is the detailed listing of all the expenses. Overall, everything is fairly normal for this time of month. The one I have picked up on, and it's addressed in activity update, we received ACH wire transfer. Property taxes of $96,380.45. Motor vehicle taxes $82,97.75. Total transfer from Guilford County $104,678. That's all collections through 12/31. Last year we had a little bit higher collection in the month of December. I think it's reverted with the economy. It's reverted back. The property tax, the bulge, as I can call it, will come in January. Due to the holidays and the way they landed, the last day to pay property taxes was January the 5th. So, or is January the 5th, which is tomorrow. So we do expect to see that action. The amount we got this month parallels very closely with the tax collection that was sent to the fire department, which has an earlier cutoff, about the 26th, 27th of the month is when they normally do that one. So overall, it's reasonable. We should have the bulk of the property taxes will come in. For those of you that didn't read the Rhino articles today, Oak Ridge is, there's a herd in Guilford County that are over 99% collection, and we're actually just ahead of the city of Greensboro. So that agreement with the county has worked out. As some information on that, there was an article yesterday, the interlocal agreements are being discussed with the county having some inflationary adjustments potential. So They may come back with a little bit higher collection rate. We don't know. It's all pending. The documents are all being put out there for the county, and that is, of course, it's a work session where council and staff can log in and watch. But that's kind of the only breaking thing we've got. The income for this month, we had franchise tax, we had our normal sales tax, property tax, the interest for December, franchise tax with telecom, services, video programming, electric power, pipe, natural gas. All of those are within the realms of the normal movement we've seen. Planning and zoning fees, special events, park receipts, water grant reimbursement, and donations to the Veterans Honor Green. Our investments, we are monitoring those. We're looking at the yield rates that we can get. Upcoming, the 25th of this month, I have to do the bank balances, the collateralization report. So we're working on that. All of our depositories are, in one of the two methods, all of our deposits are 100% insured. So we basically have to do that compliance report. But we are looking within the realm of having completely collateralized and safeguarded funds of where we can get the maximum yield. So that's an ongoing process. For the month, we supported staff with grant compliance on the ARPA, the SCIF grants, the CIP progress, and again, the work on the water system. The AFIR report was completed and filed last week. That is a report on financial information. It's one of the more fun ones. It's based on certain key numbers out of our audit. It is done for the state, and it is managed by the U.S. Census Bureau. So we actually have to log into the census website to file the information, and they in turn turn around and send it back to the state of North Carolina. So a little bit unusual. It's always a high point of my year to actually do that one because it's just very odd. But we've got that one done. But overall, everything very strong, normal position. The process with getting the draws with Truist on the bank loan for the loan that's underwriting the new park, they've got it down to this time. We were just a hair over 24 hours from notification. They came out, looked at some aerial stuff, and within 24 hours, the money was underway. So Truist, through David LeBlanc, is our regional VP that we've been working with. Him and his staff have done phenomenal work. This took the process down from several days down to literally a day. So all that's gone well. They've been very pleased with the cooperation, with the documentation, and with the process that the builder is doing on the park. So everything is going extremely, extremely well. But that's pretty much everything.
Do we have a motion to accept the finance officer's report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Before you step away, I attended today's work session of the county commissioners. They're planning on making a decision in February. Again, you never know what they're going to say, but they seem to be leaning toward the .75, which I think would raise us to about $7,700 thereabouts.
Yeah.
It had been .62 for the last 12 or 13 years. So that's where they're heading. Like I said, that was the sentiment today. The sentiment in February could be completely different.
Well, that sentiment, I mean, that's still, even if it goes up like that, I mean, there's some inflationary stuff, but for the cost of us trying to establish our own tax department and the underlying, revaluations and everything else, all the process that they do, and the one I can wholeheartedly, the staff members they've got down there working with us on anything related to this, extremely, extremely sharp, competent professionals. We've, knock on wood, never had an issue with them. The most variances I've ever had has been, I don't know, 50, 60 bucks, and it was due to a computer glitch. Normally, if we have a variance, we're talking pennies. But great folks and very, very responsive to anything that we need or we have called them about. So,
They talked about the I can't pronounce the word, but I guess a lot of the aerial pictometry, that's the word I'm looking for. Thank you for pronouncing it correctly. But evidently that's led to finding a lot of properties that weren't on the roster And so that's, collecting up, more collections, so it's interesting. It was fascinating.
It is very interesting. What's interesting is when they can take a picture, and I know that I've looked at the one for the farm, and you can actually count the shadows from the strands of barbed wire. So it's,
Right.
somebody's watching you.
All right, thanks.
Yeah,
Okay.
just an additional comment,
Yes.
because I wasn't able to go, but I saw you there by Zoom. So if it does go to the .75, it would raise our, I guess, this tax collection fee to $76.91, based on their
Yeah.
numbers that they showed from 63.58.
I appreciate all the committees and boards have stuck it out here. We're now going to do committee reports, 3 minutes, but keep them as short as you can. Parks and Rec Advisory Board.
Good evening, Mayor, and good evening, Council. My name is John Browning. I live at 8024 Linville Road. Here to present our activities report for the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. We held our meeting December 14th of 2023. It seems so long ago, but anyway, December 14th of this in December. Just want to highlight a couple quick things. We did approve scope of work for a security system for the Oak Ridge Town Park and the Heritage Farm Park. We're thankful for a grant from Guilford County, and I think the staff has already gotten some input from the Sheriff's Department. And we're happy to have on our board Adrian Eckenrod, who has a big, strong background in security systems. So Adrian's offered to assist us in developing our security system going on. And there's been some big advancements, according to Adrian, in the high-definition cameras. So we're terribly excited about that. And there's been some citizen input for the last several years, so again, we're excited to hopefully implement that. And basically, I think our system's going to include cameras at the entrances and exits, again, both at the town park and at the Heritage Farm Park. And the system that we will have built will be able to be expanded, so we can add more cameras and more areas. So this is a good start, and we're terribly excited about that system going forward. Another item, it's hard to imagine music in the park with the forecast of sleet and snow this weekend, but now is the time for all this planning. And I did want to compliment Ashley Royal and Caroline Ruck, who's been working months and months to get this, our music in the park up and going. Again, we have 4 of our 6 bands already booked, and now Ashley and Caroline are working on getting sponsors for that. So again, we're excited about the upcoming year. That 2024 promises to be bigger and better than ever. So that's the highlights of our meeting. Any questions or comments for that?
Thank you.
Okay, thank y'all. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry. Finance Committee isn't ready to meet, but next month we will be reappointing people and assigning a council liaison. So the meetings the actual meetings start in February, don't they, or in March? Okay. But next month, we will be making reappointments to the Finance Committee and basically launching it for next year. Water Advisory Committee?
Good evening, Spencer Sullivan, 7917 Quiet Place. Water Advisory Committee met on December 20th. We had a full agenda. I'll be really quick with it, though. 2 items you already know. I was elected chairman of the committee to fill the vacancy created when Councilman Harton was sworn into his new position. We reviewed the interlocal agreement with Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utilities and recommended presenting it to you, which has already happened this evening. As Councilman Harton said, this is a greatly reduced document from the original we received. It was probably at least twice as long as the one you're looking at now. So it's been pared down considerably, and it includes very favorable terms for our town. We heard updates from the engineer via Mr. Bruce on the progress for the plans for the elevated tank. Those plans are now complete, and the water main engineering is roughly 30% complete. The next step is the application for the tank design that must be submitted to the state for their approval. That will happen this month, I think. but the approximate approval time is 2 to 3 months. That's the next step. Once that's received, we can proceed with asking for bids for that project. On recommendation from our engineer, Mr. Bruce is beginning to look for a site for a future booster station that we might need. I guess a word of explanation there. For flows that the engineer estimates will go 15 to 20 years for the town's use, that flow will go by gravity, but at some point we will need a booster station. The engineer strongly recommends we secure that land, given the rapid development that's occurring, to get the most favorable location for it. Mr. Bruce is going to reach out to a property owner of the property the engineer identified for us to gauge their interest in the town purchasing it from them. And that's it.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No. Thanks.
Thanks, Spencer.
Historic preservation? Historic preservation, sorry. I understand.
Good evening. Barbara Engel, 8524 Rosedale Drive. Just wanted to let you know I'm standing in for Debbie Schoenfeld, who has COVID and a bad case, it sounds like. The HPC met for its regularly scheduled meeting on December 13th, 2023. We approved a COA for the construction of a new family home located on Willard Road. That was our only item of business. And our historic Oak Ridge book is still in the process of being proofread. Thank you. Any questions?
Nope.
Thanks.
Planning and zoning? Have anybody from planning and zoning? Nope. Left. Mountain to the Sea? I know Ann Steele just left, so. Conservation Easement Committee? No. Special Events Committee?
Bingo.
And as usual, Patty has special dispensation to exceed the 3 minutes. Oh, okay.
Everybody's excited. Patty Domchowski, 7320 Hidden View Drive. Our veterans total is now over $250,000. And this is thanks to Jim Harton, who has donated his annual town council salary. We received a check this week for $5,000. The luminaries have all been taken up and stored thanks to Diana Macklin, Amy and Brent Kerhoff, and to the special events group and all of our volunteers. Special thanks to Terry, Landon, and to Bill. They were able to give us our own spot now for a storage, and it's behind the Redmond House, and they put a nice shelf in there, so the 1,400 luminaries were stacked, sealed, wrapped, and put up on the shelves for next year. Invitations have been sent out, have been emailed out to folks for the volunteer dinner on January 20th. Logistics, catering, program participants have all been put in place. ORMA and the Scouts will be participating. Hope to see all the volunteers there for a wonderful evening of thanks to our volunteers. Our schedule for next year has been put in place. Memorial Day, 4th of July Kids Parade, participation in the Heritage Day, 9/11 ceremony, Veterans Day, and hopefully we'll be at our new site to do this and light up the night. And last, on a sad note, we all wanted to send our condolences to Danny Uzik on the loss of his beautiful wife, Linda. She was a fixture at many of our events and will be greatly missed.
Yes.
Any questions?
Okay. Tree Committee did not meet, so I don't think we're there. Oak Ridge Elementary, did we have anything from Oak Ridge Elementary? Okay. Oak Ridge Youth Association.
Randy Collins, 4514 Peoples Road, Oak Ridge, proud resident of Oak Ridge. I had some stuff tonight about cheering, but I think I have to make another update with Oak Ridge from what previously happened. So I got 3 minutes. I'll make it brief. I think the attorney may support me in understanding a contract is an agreement between two parties. I that night had agreement with Parks and Rec of that agreement. Tonight, I feel like the agreement had no resolution because there's not two agreements. There's not agreement between the two parties that originated. So I just wanted to state that. I would like to ask that I was in all the meetings about this $8. You know, I'm new to the town, so I've tried to get a good understanding. You know, the $8. It was recommended to first go to $15. Why is that? Well, we haven't raised it in that long. So I want to ask each of you, I know the answer to this. In those 3 years, 2019 to 23, 4 years, it's remained at $8. Do you know what the percentage of increase was those 4 years? Because we gained a lot. We skyrocketed with out-of-town residents and players. Any idea? I would think that you would probably love the raise to be 123%. So from putting $8 in at 400 kids versus 1,200 kids, the town received a whole lot more money. They really did. Okay? That's just part of it. I just feel like there should be some type of stipulation for ORYA to look at what you guys just put back in. That rule number 9, the item 9, the reason that was taken out in the 12,000, because it is such a pain for these volunteers that's volunteering all the time, coaching and everything, now to get addresses and all this. That's what I'm told. I don't do the process, so I don't know. But that's why that was strict, and because it is such a pain. That's why they were willing to give up $12,000 so they wouldn't have to go through all that agonizing pain. Kelly, before me, she fought that. That was her battle, was try to get rid of some of this heartache. I have another question for you. How many coaches in ORYA are from out of town that spend their time hours and hours and hours coaching Oak Ridge children? Do you know? I think my 3 minutes is up.
Thank you. We now open another public comment section. You're welcome to come up and speak for 3 minutes on any subject. Just state your name and address and be done with it. Take the floor, I'm sorry.
Hi, Bill Goebel, 1402 Westridge, Greensboro. I won't take 3 minutes. I'm running unaffiliated for the school board. I have to collect 2,132 signatures. Right now I have about 1,450. I've been going door to door in our precincts and about 500 doors. And I should be able to make that number up by March 5th. So I look forward to being on the ballot in November for your school board representative. I have a blank sheet here if anybody would like to sign up so I can get on the ballot. I'm going to stay late and happy to take their signature. Thank you.
Thank you. George?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I'm George McClellan. I live at 2806 Oak Ridge Road in Oak Ridge, North Carolina. Tonight, I want to thank you so much for the continuation of the Farmhouse Community Center to its completion. It's going to be a wonderful, community center for our citizens here in Oak Ridge. So my hat's off to you, and I'm glad that you had the courage to continue. I also want to thank you for the vote that you did on the contract with ORYA. I, too, support ORYA, but I don't think that the taxpayers of Oak Ridge should subsidize non-residents. For a couple guys who ran as fiscal conservatives, they sure have a funny way of showing it. Anyway, once again, thank you overall. Oak Ridge 2, the other side 0.
Randy Collins, 4514 Peoples Road. I would also like, because I was raised in a little community and my dad ran the Parks and Recs, it was very small, nothing of this magnitude. But I've coached for 30 years. I've coached in community ball, I've coached travel ball, I've coached it all. I'd like to ask, out of the 5 of you, how many of you run a community program as far as recreation, and how many of you coached more than 5 years? I understand the mornings you get up and get ready, on a Saturday morning to prep for the practices. Running across the town to get a kid that mom and daddy won't bring them. Hours of gas and time that takes. If you were to pay the coaches, let's turn this around a little bit. Let's say those coaches are valuable. Let's pay those coaches that's volunteering all these time for our children and the other children that comes from out of town. What would the cost of the hours be for that? I mean, let's think about these volunteers that's doing so much for the community as well. And I still go back to the two parties in agreement over this contract that y'all voted on tonight, that now we don't have any say-so. I'll say this. In real estate, if I was buying a house, the house was for sale for $200,000, right? Stay with me for 1 second. I'm the buyer. They present me with the I know it's 200. I say I'll give 160 for it. We go back to the seller. The seller says, nope, I'm going to take 200. Go ahead and write it up and take it to the bank. I have no idea. I've just bought a house for $200,000. I would never do that. You would come back to me and say, hey, she said 180. I said, well, 160. Now we negotiate. That's what I felt the contract was about, and that's why I got involved in ORYA, was to help the community, the board, and the town. It should be a negotiation. That shouldn't have been a hard line tonight, guys. ORYA should still have some say-so in that. They should have. I'm done. Thanks.
Anyone else like to speak? Yes, sir.
Frank Carroll, 1389 Forsyth Road, Kernersville. Just an observation and a comment. We just heard from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board that they had a grant from Guilford County to do stuff, cameras at the park. How does somebody in McLeansville feel about that? Are they going to be able to come over here because they put money to it? Just, none of you objected to taking that money. And just second comment is that with the comment around the wanting to maintain a roster of kids, addresses, names, everything like that, if you maintain that roster, you're responsible for the security of that roster. I'm not sure that you want to put yourself in that position. Thank you very much.
Anyone else would like to speak?
Sanders, 1837 Oak Ridge Road. I just want to take a moment and say that when I was growing up...
Ellis? Yep.
Right. When I was growing up, I had nothing or many places to play, in fact, except the backyard. And we are offering the Oak Ridge Youth Association all of these facilities that the town people have provided. And I think a little bit more appreciation should be brought forth, because we are not trying to put a hardship on anyone. We are only trying to give, but we don't feel like that we should have to give it all. And so that's why it is a good thing that they can help provide what they want for the children. It's a two-way street, and we would work with anybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? All right, with that, we're going to close the public comment section. We'll now turn to council comments. Mr. Greason.
I think I'm good. I've already said enough.
All right, Mr. Stone.
May have made a mistake. What Randy points out, I guess we may need to ask Mr. Thomas about this at some point. But making a motion to strike something from the contract is no different than making a motion to add something into the contract. And if Mr. Collins is right, that this agreement between the Youth Association and Parks and Rec, then should we be altering that without the Parks and Rec people and without the Youth Association people having the opportunity to discuss what it is that we're proposing to change? So I think it's a curious question. I think it's a legitimate question, and I don't have the answer to it. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Harden?
Well, it's been an eventful night. I would say the first full council meeting that I've been part of. Obviously, a lot of disagreement among the council members, but we've addressed all the issues. I think we've been fact-based, which is one of the things I mentioned in December that I would strive to do. And I think we've come to the resolutions that are good for all the citizens of this town. So it's been a long night, but I think it's been a productive night.
Ms. Schneider?
Parks and Rec is advisory to council. Council gets to make the decision. The inclusion of rosters and numbers has been in the contract, I think, since it began 7 or 8 years ago. So all we did is unstrike that out, and we gave ORYA the choice of whether to pay per family or in a lump sum. I think that's generous and appropriate. I want to say something wonderful about special events. I've so enjoyed the luminaries, and I'm so looking forward to the volunteer appreciation dinner later this month. If you're a volunteer in this town and you haven't received your invitation by email, it may be coming by mail, but if you don't receive it soon, call Town Hall. We want you there. Thank you.
As to the roster, the names are redacted, so the only thing we're looking for is information about things, and there's no question that we would be very careful with that information. As always, you know, if you're able to donate blood, please do. The United Methodist Church every even month has a blood drive, so you're able to do it regularly. Summit Church has them regularly. Central Baptist Church has them regularly. And also, there's any number of places where you can donate blood. 2024 is going to be a great year for the town. We have the new park and the Veterans Honor Green. They'll be coming online. As Ms. Schneider mentioned, don't forget the volunteer dinner, January 20th at Oak Ridge United Methodist Church. Our town runs on volunteers. And compared to all they do, it's a small but well-earned sign of appreciation. So please, if you're a volunteer, attend. If you know a volunteer, whether it's Youth Association or with the town, please acknowledge that you know, they are giving time, which is priceless. You know, the amount of money to replace time is unlimited. I mean, it's difficult to replace time with money. With that, I'd like a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.